Hello, this is the Harboring Light. I'm Mary. I give a conservative take about the world around me. So feedback is immensely important. Feel free to reach out to me, and the sources for you to do so will be provided, as always, in the episode. And also, I have a Shopify store, custom-made tumblers, shirts. Also, you can email me special requests, and feel free to check it out. That link will also be provided in this episode. Alright, so some of the audio platforms that I'm on Speaker, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. These are just to name a few. So it's Friday, so I'm focusing in on fashion. This week is Mexico City and the tapestry of the history of fashion. Here we go. Alright, so here are my thoughts about the history, the aspects of fashion of Mexico City. So I was lucky enough to, this past summer, was still summer, to travel. And I went to, part of Mexico, I went to Cozumel. And so Cozumel, Costa Maya and Cozumel, they're all not the same. So Costa Maya is more of a touristy, shop till you drop kind of thing. Cozumel is in between, the difference of, it's not quite like Belize, but where you can go and you can go off and you can tour if you want to. And you're not really restricted to go and do things as far as, well, you can be more of your own person in Belize. Let me put it that way. But with Costa Maya, and then with Costa Maya, like, it's more restricted, and Cozumel is in between. But anyway, my whole point of bringing all these up, They gave very variety and vast interpretations about the aspects of Mexico. And so, the aspects of Mexico is not all the same to everybody. With the negative and then with the good, there are different interpretations about what to expect from Mexico. And so, when you're getting accustomed to everything about the aspects of the history, it really is, literally a visual representation when you look towards the fashion. And so when you dive into the aspects of fashion, it tells the stories of what the people are explaining about their culture. So it depends on what is more favorable and what is not. And everything can be neatly expressed through what is really prevalent and what the people wear. And so there's a lot of school of thought, there's the aspects of, well, mainly when you get in the heart of the matter of fashion, it has to do with affluence, it has to do with trends, it has to do with this, and it has to do with the wave in trends in which people are favorable towards. Sometimes with trends, it's just something that, the mindset of with the analogy of, mindless sheep's just following the herd, and sometimes it's not. But either way, again, refocusing in on, you really are what you wear. most of the times, even the history explains that in the fashion. So with all this said, I'm going to get into the aspects of, I'm going to get into the aspects about the history of fashion from Mexico City. Here we go. Alright, so of course sources will be provided for you in this episode. Okay. Here we go. Music again. While I'm looking. Here we go. Alright, enough joking around. Here we go. So, Mexico City fashion history. So, the fashion history of Mexico City is deeply intertwined in the city's complex and cultural and political past, reflecting a conscious dialogue between indigenous traditions and colonial influences and modern global trends. So, the city's significance in fashion dates back centuries within the 18th century, seeing the use of beauty markets known as the chiquadors, which were applied to the temples of women and sometimes shaped into symbols like suns and moons. And so, you're getting, this is from my interpretation, the aspects of connecting to, the pre-colonialist, the early history of Mexico, when you get into the Aztecs, the mentality about Aztecs and the ruins of that, and how powerful with the aspects of gods and goddesses, and how that was very influential into shaping the culture of Mexico. And then when you go back and you see how that really shapes the way that the Mexican heritage and how they relate themselves in the aspects of their lineage and traditions, and how that expands out into what people see and think about them moving on ahead in history to other generations. Alright, so the revival of the Spanish in the 16th century introduced European fabrics, and so it's quite interesting, that's not the same, even though it's quite interesting in itself too with the aspects of Spanish, speaking the language. So Spanish is not the same in every dialect, even though it's labeled like that way. People who are speaking Spanish, so to speak, in Mexico City is not the same as Spanish in Spain. And then so because again, Spain it has more of a European flair, it's part of Europe, into where it's not their cultural aspects of how they speak and think and feel are not at all the same. And so this really clues into the aspects about also with language, which is more of a defining aspects of how people think when you're trying to cultivate the aspects of honing down about beliefs and values with dialect. And so with the Spain people coming into Mexico from Spain, they're going to again be more European in thought and matter and fashion about how they culturally value what things are. So again, when you get a clash of different beliefs, you're going to get in a revolt. So in the aspects of that, here we go. So following the Mexican revolt in the 1920s, then because we get again the division of tradition and new ideas when influenced with other cultures in here, was the effort to incorporate indigenous garments and historical visuals repertoires into fashion to forge a distinct national identity. So this period saw the rise of the first recognizable fashion designers in Mexico, and also hold on just a minute, let me gather my thoughts together. Let me get that right. Okay, let me rephrase that again. So this period saw the rise of the first recognized fashion designers in Mexico, so both internationally and those rooted in local traditions, who began to evaluate Mexican fashion. So the post-revolutionary era solidified the importance of traditional textiles like for instance, the Sharpay, for instance, which are still produced by indigenous communities in the state of Mexico. So the government further promoted this national identity through incentives like the Hecho in Mexico, so which means made in Mexico. It's a campaign launched in 1952 by President Alemán, which mandate that domestically produced clothing carry labels indicating its origin, linking national pride with domestic manufacturing. So in the 20th century, Mexican fashion designers like Roman. Hush. So, alright. So designers, sorry about that. So designers like Ramon Valadezaro played a pivotal role in bringing Mexican color and style to the world stage. His 1949 fashion show in New York introduced Mexican pink, a color that became the symbol of Mexican culture. So the city's fashion scene continued to evolve within the 1940s, making the beginning of the recognition of Mexican fashion designers as creators. The first 20th century has seen a resurgence of interest in traditional and artisan fashion, driven by a global shift towards slow fashion and sustainability, as well as the international recognition of Mexico City's culture. So this has positioned Mexico City as a burgeoning fashion capital, highlighted by major international events like the Dior Cruise Show in 2023, which celebrated Mexican indigenous craftsmanship and featured prominent celebrities. So the city's unique blend of ancient tradition and modern innovation, coupled with its geographical advantage for nearshoring, continues to shape Jamaican fashion history. So I'm going to end on this. Let's see. Alright, so also with the aspects of transition with Trump being in office, with the aspects of tariffs and things of that nature. So this is not popular for everybody to say or everybody to think, but this is just my point of view of it. So with the aspects of holding on to traditions and how that translates into American culture. Now, going back to tariffs. Now, the way it's presented in mainstream, and which is getting out of wave of as a trusted source of information. Now, tariffs aren't really presented in a fashionable or appeasing light, when in actuality, the aspects of charging tariffs, the U.S. being able to, from my understanding of it, being able to outsource and charge tariffs to other countries, and then bringing them back into the aspects of other countries and how they relate in businesses and business practices of consumer goods. It's really helpful, and then even though they say, oh, the prices are going up, it's this, that, and the other. But again, think of it from this point of view. It unites the tie that bounds. So what does that mean? So, I said the aspects of tradition really means something into the cultures that it's presenting. And so, when you get which is really impactful about America, is a cultural influence of all different sort of people from all over. And so that also means that is influencing in the aspects of the economy too, and what we buy. And so think about it like this. So when you put a staple and say, hey, why don't we just have the means of not cutting corners and really placing a lot of value in American made products, American workers, that really builds up the resources again of evolving the economic map of what people can do in the culture, in the society. And that translates into other cultures too, about the aspects of that. It's good to trade and get, and I always welcome that, to have new ideas from other cultures and so forth. But also, from a business point of view, look at it from that terms too, with the aspects of tariffs and trades and so forth. Not just having it just completely influx with most of the products are just not truly made from the source of where it came from. And then you can translate to that, how would that be, or how would that feel, in the Mexican culture, Mexico City, particularly in the capital over there, where most of the stuff is just American made, and where's the essence of our identity and traditions of things that are locally crafted and produced solely in Mexico City. That's something to think about too. All right, so with all this said, I'd like to absolutely know what you all think. Feel free to reach out to me. So this reaches the end of the Harboring Light. Tune in, turn up, and definitely take care. Bye-bye for now.